Today the trekkers are taking you to the eastern shore of Virginia. We'll start off at Pungoteague Elementary School, where the 4th graders invite us for a visit. Next we'll head over to Hancock to show you the Ker Place, a famous plantation house. Next we'll tour the NASA facility at Wallops, and then we'll head over to Chincoteague to show you the famous wild ponies, as well as the Assateague Lighthouse. Next we'll stop over at the beach to show you the Atlantic Ocean. And finally, on our way back to Richmond, we'll stop along the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel to show you this amazing place. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get trekking. To get to the eastern shore, we had to cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, but we're going to talk more about that at the end of our podcast because we're in a hurry to get to Pungoteague Elementary School, where the students have invited us to come visit. All right. Awesome. That's great. As you can see, they made us feel very welcome. We had a great time hanging out with the students and teachers of Pungoteague Elementary School, and we even found some students who had made their own Trekkers t-shirts. They also helped us film our intro to this video. I'm David. I'm Frank.
And I'm Alfonso.
And we're here today on the eastern shore of Virginia.
Today we're starting off our day with our fine 4th grade students here at Pungoteague Elementary.
And these 4th graders wrote us letters and told us all the cool spots to check out while we're making this podcast. So if you're ready to go trekking, let's go trekking!
We had a great time here at Pungoteague Elementary School. The teachers and students here were fantastic. They gave us some gift certificates to Tammy and Johnny's where we can go eat our lunch.
They also gave us some spirit wear where we can show the spirit from the school.
And we're going to put that shirt in our bag, our Pungoteague Elementary School bag, which is fantastic. It is now official. We are packed up. Let's go check out the eastern shore.
Let's go trekking!
Here we are at the famous Tammy and Johnny's restaurant on Route 13 on the eastern shore.
This was highly recommended by the 4th graders at Pungoteague Elementary.
And they were nice enough to give us gift certificates to eat here, and we can't wait. We've heard this chicken at this place has put all the other chicken places out of business.
So, let's go trekking. Let's go eating.
Yeah! After our delicious lunch, we headed out to explore the historical sites on the eastern shore. Here we are in Hancock, and behind me is the Ker Place. It was built in 1799.
It's really known for its architecture and a fine woodwork that it has inside, but also this was built on a plantation. And you know that tobacco was a cash crop, and they tried to grow tobacco here, but they weren't very successful with it. So they went ahead and went with the grain and potatoes.
And since this was an actual working plantation, John Shepherd Kerr, who died in 1806, had 22 slaves working here, mostly in the fields. And what was unique about his death, when he died, part of his death and part of his will was to release his slaves and give them their freedom.
The eastern shore also played an important part during the Civil War. Here in the center of Hancock is a monument to General Edmund Bagwell. He fought on the Confederate side during the Civil War. And actually the eastern shore played a part in the Civil War because, as you know, the Union had a blockade to prevent goods from entering the South. Well, the eastern shore was a spot where goods could be shipped down into the Confederate States without people being caught. Our next stop on the eastern shore is the Wallops Flight Facility, owned by NASA. NASA has a space station here on the eastern shore called Wallops, and it's actually one of the oldest NASA space centers in America. And they launch rockets here. Unfortunately, we aren't going to be here on the day they're launching a rocket, but we're going to take you around and show you some of the cool stuff they have here at Wallops Space Center.
Here we are in the part of the museum. We found an actual piece of the moon. This came from the mission from the Apollo 17, and we're going to pan down right now and take a quick look.
Alright, so here at the Wallops facility, they don't launch people into space. This is more of a scientific facility. So right here you can see the picture, we've got the very first launch. This was back in 1945. And what these rockets do is they come and they shoot rockets up into the atmosphere, but they don't go into orbit, meaning they don't go around the Earth. They're called suborbital flight. So they would go up into the atmosphere at a certain point and then come back to Earth. But at some point in there, there'd be a sensor that would release whatever instrument they're using at the time to measure what's going on in the atmosphere.
Outside the Wallops Museum are examples of the different type of rockets. You remember Frank talking about the rockets inside. Here's a prime example of the large scale of these rockets.
So you bought model rockets before, and you know an engine on a model rocket's only about that big. Well, the engine on this rocket is about as big as the Trekkers. And this rocket would go 160 miles into space.
And would carry a payload of anywhere between 160 and 200 pounds.
That's about as much as Alfonso weighs.
Alright, so we're still here at Wallops, and when you think rockets, you think huge rockets, not like those little ones we were showing you before. We think huge, and check out what we found.
This particular rocket was used for the Mercury mission, and it prepared not with humans, but it sent up a monkey, Monkey Sam and Miss Sam, just to see what the effects of weightlessness would do to humans.
Alfonso's going to go over and show you exactly how tall this rocket is. And while he's doing that, I found some new wildlife out here at the Eastern Shore. We haven't seen any of these mosquitoes yet, but let me tell you, they are huge. Check out how little Alfonso is compared to that rocket.
I'm taking a mosquito to my arm to show you one of the special features of the Eastern Shore. The mosquitoes are famous here. Now watch. Dead.
Alright, so you know that the Eastern Shore is definitely in the coastal plain, and if you needed more proof about that, check out what we've got behind us. Here we are, we're about to go to Chincoteague Island. The bridge to go across is right there, but here's a saltwater marsh. This has probably got brackish water in it. Alfonso was talking about brackish water in a previous podcast. And out here we've got all kinds of wildlife. We've got birds diving for fish. We've got songbirds, beautiful birds singing. And this is right outside the Wallops Space Center. So this would be a really cool spot if you've never seen what the coastal plain really looks like.
Our next stop on the Eastern Shore was to head to Chincoteague to see the wild horses there. So of course one of the most famous things about Chincoteague Island is the ponies. And here we are at some ponies that aren't really wild. They've been put into a pen here, but we wanted to give you a close-up look at the beautiful ponies of Chincoteague Island.
We're even allowed to feed them.
But when you come to Chincoteague, you better make sure you read the signs here. Come on, Alfonso.
That's why you need to learn to read, boys and girls.
He says you're supposed to throw it in this thing.
I didn't know that.
These are Assateague ponies. These are the actual Assateague ponies. And the really cool thing is they're their own breed. They're smaller than big horses that you normally see on farms that you see people riding on. And that makes them suited or well suited for this area. As you can see, they have to live in a marshy area and all that stuff. So these are perfect. There's a couple of legends about these horses and where they came from. One legend is that a Spanish ship wrecked off of the coast of Virginia here. Spanish were the first people to bring horses to the United States or to the New World back then. And the most likely one is that they were released from somebody's farm and they were trying to avoid stock or livestock laws back in the 1800s. All right, so we brought you to the spot so you guys can see another cool example of what the coastal plain looks like. But then check out right above the trees, see this lighthouse? That's our next stop.
Behind me you see the Assateague Lighthouse. It's a famous landmark here, and it was built in 1866 and it's 142 feet tall.
The lamp was originally powered by oil, and now if you were in the Atlantic Ocean, you would be able to see this lighthouse 22 miles offshore.
And with the building of this lighthouse in the 1900s, a village was created of about 225 people. These folks survived from the resources that were available in this area.
but it no longer exists. It's just about time for us to head home, but we made one more stop. All right, the trekkers are on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and it goes from Virginia Beach on this side over to the eastern shore. It's about 20 miles long, and it's the only way to get to the eastern shore from Virginia by car.
All right, so we found this really cool spot along the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. And we say Bay Bridge Tunnel, it's because it's a combination of bridges and tunnels. And the reason we need tunnels is for these massive cargo ships to get into the Chesapeake Bay. Right over here, over my right shoulder, is Virginia Beach. And way down, Dave said over 20 miles, down this bridge and tunnel system is the eastern shore. So what you're actually looking at right now is the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. So straight out there is the Atlantic Ocean. All these ships are bringing freight and cargo into Virginia. Those are imports, and then they leave the same direction, and they leave with exports from Virginia. All right, trekkers, we've come to the end of another podcast. Behind me is the Atlantic Ocean. Behind the camera is the Chesapeake Bay.
We hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of the sights and the physical features of the Chesapeake Bay.
And be sure to check out Virginia Trekkers for more podcasts. And we can't be at the beach without taking a swim. So come on. But it's a good idea to wait till the summer to go swim in the ocean, because right now it's late spring, it's a little cold.
But it gets rid of the mosquito bites.
Yeah! I'm David. We had a great time here at Pungoteague. They gave us some Virginia peanuts.
Not only food, but spirit wears as not only food.
No, we had to do it over.
Oh, come on. Well, here we are at Johnny and Tammy's. All right. So come on, boys and girls. Save the crabs. Save the bay. Save the Chesapeake Bay.